So for today's venture, you're going to need an Arduino, a cable to power your Arduino, a USB cable, three female to male cables, a sensitive microphone breakout board, a keyboard, a mouse, a Raspberry Pi with an SD card with Raspbian on it, and a monitor. I'm using a Pi Zero, so I've got a couple extra things like this USB hub because you only really get one of those micro USBs and the other one's for power. And then I'm powering it with just like an Amazon charger. I also have a one of those micro HDMI to HDMI cables. Or is it mini? I don't know, the small one basically. But not the super small one that the Pi 4 uses. It may not be super necessary, but don't forget to go to interfacing options and turn on SSH. That way, if anything goes wrong, we can always talk to it later. So I've got the Arduino plugged into the hub, although eventually I'll just have it plugged straight into the Pi once I don't need the keyboard and mouse anymore. I put a small fan on it. I don't know if it was really helping, but it doesn't hurt. And then on the Arduino, I've got the orange cable to plus, which goes to the 5 volts on the Arduino. I've got the blue cable to ground on the microphone, which goes to the ground on the Arduino. And then I've got the green cable on A0, on basically analog, which goes to analog on the Arduino. And I'm using a A0 on the Arduino for this code. The first thing you want to do is make sure your microphone is tuned appropriately. So what I did is I made this quick mic test, and as you can see it's not doing anything right now. I'm using this fan to test it, and the microphone's right here. And so when I turn on the fan, so right there when I'm starting to touch things, it's going off. And then when I turn on the fan, then it's definitely going off. Which the fan is right now simulating the washing machine. And so what you do is you turn it on, and you basically tune this. There's going to be a screw right here on that blue module, and you just turn it until that green light is basically like almost on all the time, or like fully on all the time, but just barely. And that should approximate this thing here. And then worst case, so I'm pressing enter a couple times, and so you can see that right now it's not hearing anything, which is what we want. So in order to fully automate this, we gotta do cron tab-e, and basically what that is we can give it a command that once, like for example, at reboot, we're gonna be doing two things. One, we're gonna start the email server, and then two, I need to open up the screen a bit more. And then two, we are going to be telling it to run the script. We like, wait 2 minutes and then let's run the script. And yeah, from there on, as you can see, it's been sending the emails. If I can focus on this, there we go. It's been sending me emails that it's been turning on and turning off. So that's just a quick Arduino script. Basically, it's as simple as can be. It starts up, it starts the serial, it reads in the analog number, and then it sends it to the serial. And that way, the Arduino is just kind of like a conduit from analog to digital for the Raspberry Pi. All right, so let's go through the basic code. We're going to need the serial library, because we're going to be reading from the serial port. We're going to need RE library for string manipulation. We're going to need the email libraries, and we're going to need NumPy. So first of all, we're going to be like, hey, the thing at USB 0, we need to read that with a baud rate of 9600. And we're going to be using this UTF-8 encoding, which basically changes, the weird bit thing to string. The washer state, so here's some constants. We're going to use the washer state as 0, standard deviation is 0, and our counter is 0. The counter is going to help us read through this array, which we're going to initialize to just a bunch of 505s that seem kind of like the average value of the microphone. Then we have some email oriented things. So like the port of the email client is this one. The Gmail SMTP server is that. Here's my bot's email. Here's my bot's password. Obviously, this isn't like a real email. And then here's my personal email, which is where I'm going to be getting the notifications to. I've got two basic messages. One message is for when things start. So it's got a subject of washer started and I heard a noise. And then one message of washer ended and no more noise. And then we need this context, basically just kind of like a container for this whole email procedure. So while this is running, basically we're just going to constantly be reading in the microphone, and we're going to be putting that value into a counter, into an array. And then we're going to have a counter that goes with the array. And since the array is size 10, we want to make sure that the counter doesn't go above 10, or else bad things happen. And then we find the standard deviation of the last 10 values that went into that counter, right? Because if it's quiet, the counter is going to be flat. If it's noisy, the counter is going to be all over the place. And so it'll be like a clear notification of like, hey, noise happened. And so if the standard deviation of the noise goes above 5 and the washer condition is set to 0, then we got to be like, okay, noise happened. That means the washer's probably on. Let's, say the washer's on make sure the code knows the washer's on. Let's just send a simple print script, and then let's do this giant mess of getting an email ready, and then sending it out. And yeah, and so I put message start here, and then yeah, we just keep going and going and going. And then if the standard deviation drops below 5 and the washer is in the on mode, at least from our point of view, then it's like, okay, things got quiet, washer's done, let's send an email. And yeah, it sends that email. And that's about it.